But then Shun grows old and meets various challenges. And one of the great challenges he meets is a flood, a terrible flood that floods all the land. And to deal with the flood, he calls upon a man called Yu. And eventually, because of Yu's great success, he will be appointed as the successor to Shun. But what is it? What is it that Yu does? The flood is spread over the lands. The roads, there are no more roads. Everything is impassable. There are no connections between the various regions anymore. Shun goes out and travels, and he begins to channel the rivers, drain the rivers, move the land so that the land could dry out and the rivers would flow into the sea. I'd like to sort of think about this for a minute as a contrast with what I read when I was small about Noah and the ark. Because God says to Noah, Noah, build an ark, put the animals on it, and wait. Wait for the storm. When the storm's over, take the animals off the ark, which is what Noah does. From Yu's perspective, Noah is entirely passive. He listens to somebody tell him what to do, he does it, and everything gets settled. In the Chinese case, and I would suggest this is the big idea, the big lesson that comes from the story of Yu. Man overcomes nature. Man conquers nature, can overcome the greatest challenges. He can move mountains. He can move rivers. He can save humanity. If you think about that as a story of China, not the story that I was once taught when I began studying Chinese history, that Chinese were passive in the face of nature, that the West conquered nature, the Chinese simply accorded with it and fit themselves to it. This story of Yu is the story that goes right down to the Three Gorges Dam, which says we can channel the rivers. We can move nature around to benefit humankind. Now, Shun gives the world, all the world under heaven, to Yu to rule, and Yu rules well. But when Yu gets old, he gives it to his son. And his son gives it to his son, and so forth, until that dynasty, which they call, is known in these texts as the Xia dynasty, is overthrown by the founders of the Shang dynasty. But it is clear, if we take all these stories together, that rule by the worthy is better than dynastic rule. Yu created a dynasty meaning that control over political power, the throne, remained in the hands of a single family until that family was moved off stage. But the ideal of Yao Shun and Yu is to, in every generation, to find worthy people. This gives us the three dynasties of ancient China according to our textual record: the Xia, the Shang, and the Zhou. It also gives us a meaning to China as a place where one king rules all, where there's a single line of development going from Yao Shun and Yu, from the ancient emperors, ancient kings, right down into the present, where rule is ideally by the worthy, and when the purpose of government is to improve the human condition. That's the story we get from these texts. That's the meaning of China. And we could ask ourselves, why, in around 500 BC, when these stories are put together, why was this such an appealing story? And the answer is very straightforward. This was a time of states warring against each other, fighting each other. What we now call China splintered into many small feudal states, which the nominal king, the Zhou king, was too weak, too ineffectual to control, and who were constantly fighting each other and taking each other's territories. So the people who put these early stories together, these early origin stories about civilization, were trying to say, this is what the world should be: unified, harmonious, ruled by worthy people who care about our welfare. That was the promise they were trying to create, the vision they were trying to create with these stories.